Hi guys, how are you doing? My name's Emer. I'm from Montenegro in Milan, and today we're talking about architecture. Um, I am from Dublin in Ireland, so my accent might be a little different. Um, if you don't understand something I say, put it in the comments or in the chat. So first say hi in the chat. Your name, what city are you from? Say hi, and we can chat in the chat. We can have a discussion in the chat to make the class more fun. So we can start. So architecture today. In this focus activity, describing architecture, passives, and presenting a structure. So, yeah, anything you don't understand, write it in the chat. So today our grammar point is passives. So you've seen passives many times by now, so you should be fine. But today we will be using passives to describe finding passives in the text. Being able to identify their tenses. So lots of grammar, should be fun. You can test your grammar skills. So don't forget, say hi in the chat, guys. We can have a discussion in the chat about architecture, but let's see what our first few questions are. So architecture. Discuss the questions with a partner. So we can discuss these questions together in the chat, in the comments. So do you prefer modern architecture or older styles? Has anything been built or renovated in your city recently? Have you visited any famous buildings and which ones? And what is your favorite building or structure and why? And describe it to a partner. So, in the chat, do you prefer modern architecture or older styles? Do you prefer modern architecture or older styles? Personally, I prefer older styles. I think. Yeah, probably. I prefer older styles, although I do like the I do love how big and dramatic some modern architecture can be. But yeah, in general, I prefer older styles. Like in Britain, or in London anyways, like the Big Ben, the Houses of Parliament, in lots of countries in Europe, the many churches, they are usually very beautifully built. So that's interesting. Number two, has anything been built or renovated in your city recently? I have been in Milan for only 3 months, but I can talk about Dublin, where I'm from. Has anything been built or renovated in your city recently? It's not very recently, but about maybe 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, the spire was built in Dublin, which is like a very tall monument, and it's like a huge spike, like a very thin spike or needle, like you would sew with a needle. It's not very exciting, but it's very big, tall, and you can see it from all around the city. So it's a nice central landmark. Okay. Have you visited any famous buildings and which ones? Well, since arriving in Milan, I have visited lots of churches. I saw the Duomo in Florence, which is very beautiful, very colorful. I really liked it. It was quite unique for a church. And of course, I saw the Duomo in Milan, which is great, very big. I love the piazza, the square where the Duomo is in Milan. It's very dramatic, and it's a nice meeting point. I love going on the metro and coming up from the metro to see the big Duomo right there. So it's quite nice. I also saw the castle in Milan, which is also very nice. It's a unique castle. I think I don't know what time period it's from, but most castles in Ireland are from either Vikings or Norman. So they look very different to the castle in Milan. The castle in Milan reminds me of um, like medieval castles that you would see in stories about like the Middle Ages with princesses and princes, like Robin Hood, or yeah, from like the 1200s. I don't know when the castle is built, but that's how it reminds me of then, that time period. Have you visited any famous buildings? Oh, I did that one. Which ones? Oh, recently. Okay. Have you visited any famous buildings, and which ones? Well, when I went to New York, I visited uh, lots of famous buildings. The Empire State Building, which was great. We went to top the top floor. I think like the 80th floor, no, 86th floor of the Empire State Building, which was great. There was a great view of all over New York. And I also went to Trump Tower, which is crazy because there's gold all over the building. It's very glamorous, a very glamorous building. And there's a shop selling Trump merchandise in the building, which was quite funny. What other buildings did I go to in New York? I didn't. That's probably about it. Well, I went to the Natural History Museum, which is huge, so big. That's a very interesting building in its own, on its own, just because it's so huge and also so old. Well, compared to European buildings, for America, it's very old. Number 4. What is your favorite building or structure, and why? Describe it to a partner. I will think for a minute. Favorite building. Sorry. Favorite building. Well, when I was in Boston, we went to this building. It was quite tall, and it had a viewing deck, which was just a floor high up in the building with glass all around the walls, so you could see all around the city of Boston. I can't remember what it was called, but that was quite nice because you could see a view of the whole city, and you could listen to a tape which told you the history of each place. So it was quite interesting. The actual building itself wasn't that tall. It's probably maybe like 50 floors, which isn't that tall for building nowadays, especially in huge like skyscraper cities like New York or Dubai or New York or Dubai really. The cities in the Middle East tend to have very high buildings, or in Asia, Tokyo, South Korea, Seoul. Yeah. Okay. So in the chat, answer the questions in the chat. Tell us what are your favorite buildings and why. Oh, no, not that one. All right. What are your favorite buildings? Okay. All right. Fry scraper. So find passives in the text. What tenses are they? A unique commercial skyscraper is located at 20 Fenchurch Street in London's financial district. It was nicknamed the walkie-talkie because of its shape, but a few years ago it earned a different nickname. It was discovered that when sunlight shines onto the concave mirrored facade, it is reflected directly onto the streets below the building. Temperatures as high as 70 degrees have been observed during the summer, and properties along the street as well as a parked car have been damaged. After these events, the building was given the nicknames Walkie Scorky, and Fry Scraper. In 2015, it was awarded the Carbuncle Cup for the worst new building in the UK. Interesting, very funny. All right, so find the passives in the text and tell me what tenses are they. So I'll give you a minute to write that down. What tenses are they? Okay. So find passives in the text and what tenses are they? So which passives did you get? Write them in the chat. So first, a unique commercial skyscraper is located at 20 Fenchurch Street in London's financial district. It was nicknamed the walkie-talkie. So first we have it was nicknamed. It was nicknamed, which is a past simple passive. Was nicknamed. Past simple passive. So we have is located at, which sounds like passive, but it is in fact a pseudo passive. So it's very similar to a passive tense, but it is in fact a pseudo passive. So, okay, because the sentence is active. A unique commercial skyscraper is located at 20 Fenchurch Street. So it's active. So therefore, it is a pseudo passive. So it's not a passive. Okay, it was nicknamed, our first passive, and it's past simple. It's grand, easy enough. It was discovered that when sunlight shines onto the concave mirror facade, it is reflected directly onto streets below the building. So, was discovered, which is also past simple. Okay, was discovered. It is reflected directly onto streets below during. Oh, sorry, can't speak. It is reflected directly onto streets below the building. Okay. Another one, which is present simple. Present simple. It is reflected. So present it is, and then our past participle reflected. Okay. Directly onto streets below the building. Temperatures as high as 70 degrees have been observed during the summer. So have been or have been observed during the summer. Have been is a present perfect. Have been during the summer. And properties along the street as well as a parked car have been damaged. So another present perfect. Okay. After these events, the building was given the nicknames Walkie Scorchy or Walkie Scorchy. I think Scorchy. Walkie Scorchy and Fry Scraper. Building was given. Okay. Was given, past simple. Was, and our past participle, was given, past simple. And lastly, in 2015, it was awarded the Carbuncle Cup for the worst new building in the UK. Was awarded, past simple again. Okay. So easy enough there. We had past simple, present perfect, present simple. Okay. Pretty easy. Any questions? Put it in the chat. Okay. So how are passives formed? A solid formation. So we have subject plus to be plus past participle. For example, the walkie-talkie was awarded the Carbuncle Cup. The walkie-talkie subject was awarded, was to be awarded past participle. Okay. And we have a exercise. So number 1, the Sydney Opera House opened in 1973. So this is a past simple passive. Many of Italy's historic buildings add to the UNESCO World Heritage Sites list, present perfect passive. The Eiffel Tower, not built in 1999, past simple passive. The Pyramid of Giza, not turn into a theme park, present perfect passive. The Empire State Building, not use as an antenna to contact aliens. Present simple passive. Okay, so first three are positive, the last three are negative. So I'll give you a minute to go through each of these. Okay. Okay. How was it? Easy, hard? Okay, let's have a look. So, the Sydney Opera House. The Sydney Opera House, past simple passive, was opened. The Sydney Opera House was opened in 1973. Okay. Many of Italy's historic buildings add to the UNESCO World Heritage Site, present perfect passive. Many of Italy's historic buildings have been added. So present perfect passive, have been added. So we have our past participle there at the end. The Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower was not built or wasn't built in 1999. Wasn't built. The Pyramid of Giza. The Pyramid of Giza hasn't been turned into a theme park. The Pyramid of Giza hasn't been turned into a theme park. And lastly, the Empire State Building isn't an antenna to contact aliens. Does anyone know what the rod at the top of the Empire State Building is for? Anyone? It's not to contact aliens. I mean, maybe it is, but it's for capturing lightning. So if there is a thunderstorm, the lightning strikes the antenna rod and can be absorbed by the metal instead of damaging the building. So there's a little fact for you. Okay, hopefully it's all right. Any questions, pop them in the chat. So a work in progress. Find the passives in the text. What tenses are they? So the Chuo Shinkansen rail line will be built between the two major Japanese cities, Tokyo and Nagoya. The trains are expected to reach speeds of 505 kilometers an hour, which means a distance of 286 kilometers can be covered in only 40 minutes. The Train speed is increased through the use of magnets, which reduce friction. Originally, this new rail system was projected to cost 40.6 billion euro, but because of the need to dig so many underground tunnels, the designers now say the project will be completed at a cost of 71.8 billion euro. Okay, so find the passives in the text and what tenses are they? So the same exercise again. I'll give you a few minutes to find the passives and their tenses. Okay, so when you have the answer, write them in the chat. What tenses are they? Okay, how are you doing? What do you think? Is it easy, hard? Should be easy, this one. Let's give it a try. So the pronunciation of Japanese words. The Chuo Shinkansen railway line will be built between the two major Japanese cities, Tokyo and Nagoya. So what tense is this? Will be built. Future simple. Very good. Future simple. The trains are expected to reach speeds of 505 kilometers an hour. Are expected to is present simple. Are present plural. Expected to are participle, past participle. So the trains are expected to reach speeds of 505 kilometers, which means a distance of 286 kilometers can be covered in only 40 minutes. So can be covered is a little different. It's a different tense. Can be covered. Can be covered is a modal passive. Modal passive, because we're using can be. Modal passive. Okay, we will see it in the next slide again. Can be covered in only 14 minutes. So the train's speed is increased through the use of magnets. So the train speed is increased, so present simple. Passive, present simple passive, through the use of magnets, which reduce friction. Originally, this new rail system was projected to cost 40.6 billion. So was projected is past simple, was past simple, passive obviously, but because of the need to dig so many underground tunnels, the designers now say the project will be completed at a cost of 71.8 billion. So another future simple. Again, will be, future simple, will be completed. Okay, any questions? Pop them in the chat. Lovely. Okay, we'll move on. So the fast track. How are future and modal passives formed? So we have subject, then modal, then to be, and past participle. So for example, the rail line should be completed by 2037. So subject, the rail line, should be, should, modal, be, to be, and then completed, past participle. So the rail line should be completed by 2037. Okay, our modals. See some examples. So, do you think the trains will be used by many people? What safety precautions have to be taken by the engineers? Can you think of any services or features that could be offered to make the travel experience more exciting and more comfortable? And do you think the focus on transportation methods in the future should be more on trains or planes? And why? So, can answer these questions, put your answers in the chat. So, number one, do you think the trains will be used by many people? Yes, because in Japan, public transport and trains are very popular and widely used. So yes, the trains will be used by many people. Number two, what safety precautions have to be taken by the engineers? So what safety precautions? So safety precautions. We'll be using modal verbs. So the engineers should be wearing should be wearing face masks and protective clothing. They should not have metal. They shouldn't have metal on them because of the magnets. What other safety precautions can you think of? Number three, can you think of any services or features that could be offered to make the travel experience more exciting and more comfortable? So, can you think of any services or features that could be offered to make the travel experience more exciting and comfortable? So maybe free seating could be offered to the customers. Free seating could be offered to customers. A flexible train ticket could be made available to customers. What else can you think of? Maybe chairs with lots of leg room should be available on the train. Okay, and number four, do you think the focus on transportation methods in the future should be more on trains or planes? Transportation methods in the future, should they be more on trains or planes? So transport in the future should be more on trains, because trains are better for the environment. Planes don't work without diesel or fossil fuels. Yeah, okay. Trains are faster over short distances, I think, also. Because if you take a train from, say, Milan to Rome, a train from Milan to Rome. It's like 5 hours, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe around 5 hours. But if you take a plane, it's like what, 40 minutes, maybe an hour. But you have to be an hour and a half early for your flight, and then to go through passport control after you get off your flight, it can take hours altogether. So for shorter distances, I think trains are better. Okay. All right. Architecture vocabulary. Match the word to its definition. So work in progress, to demolish, skyline, masterpiece, an eyesore, to renovate, to destroy something, to restore something, or make it new again, not yet finished, a person's greatest work, unpleasant to look at, the profile of buildings against the sky. So we have our words on the left and definitions on the right. So at home, match together. So number one, work in progress. Work in progress. A work in progress is something which is not yet finished. So this painting is a work in progress. It's not finished yet. To demolish. To demolish is to destroy. To demolish, to destroy something. So buildings are demolished with like a huge wrecking ball, which is a very, very big ball and heavy ball of metal, which they use to knock down buildings or to demolish buildings, or they use bombs. What are they called? Explosives to demolish buildings in a more controlled way. Skyline. Skyline is the profile of buildings against the sky. Okay. Masterpiece. Masterpiece, person's greatest work. An eyesore. An eyesore is something which is unpleasant to look at. So a very ugly building would be an eyesore. Well, we might say that building is an eyesore on the skyline. So we have a beautiful skyline and then one ugly building. So in Dublin, we have a very famous eyesore, which is Liberty, I think it's called Liberty Hall, which is a theatre, which was built in the 70s at some point. But it's very ugly and a famous eyesore in Dublin. Lastly, to renovate is to restore something or make it new again. Okay. So some lovely new words there. Let's see. Okay. I'm not going to do that one. All right. So architecture in your city. In your city, are there any works in progress? When are they going to be finished? Which old buildings should be renovated? And what could they be used as? Number 3, are there any old buildings that should be demolished? What structures do you think are masterpieces and should they be preserved? Which structures are eyesores? What could be done to improve them? Which buildings stand out in your city's skyline? And what changes could be made to improve your city? So, answering questions about your city, whichever city you're from, in Italy or France, or any other country you'd like to talk about. So I will talk about Dublin because I have only been in Milan 3 months, and about half that time I was in quarantine, so I haven't explored the city enough to be able to answer questions about it, I think. But I could talk about Dublin. If anyone has been to Dublin before, you can also say whatever you like. Don't mind. So number one, in your city, what are there any works in progress, and when are they going to be finished? Works in progress. Well, in Dublin, in the city centre, there aren't many, but just outside of the city centre, in the business, kind of the business centre district of Dublin, where Google and Facebook and all the kind of web businesses have their buildings, there are lots of new buildings being built there, high-rise buildings, which are always works in progress, so I don't know when they're going to be finished. Number two, which old buildings should be renovated, and what could they be renovated as? Which old buildings should be renovated? Well, in Dublin, there are lots of old buildings from like the what is it? The 19th and 20th century, and even the 18th century, which have been abandoned, left to like rot away. So they should be renovated and made again into apartments or buildings, museums. Some of them have been renovated into museums, which is quite cool, galleries and apartments, but there are many buildings which should be renovated. Number three, are there any old buildings that should be demolished? Yeah, number one, Liberty Hall, which I think is being demolished soon. I don't know when, but it isn't that old. It's only from like 1970 something, but it's very ugly and an eyesore on the skyline, so it is being demolished, but I'm not sure when. Which structures do you think are masterpieces, and should they be preserved? Masterpieces. Well, in Dublin city centre, there is Trinity College, which is an old university in Dublin, and in that area there's Trinity College and the old English government buildings, which are very big and elaborate. They have a very beautiful architecture. I think they should be preserved. Which structures are eyesores? Well, Liberty Hall. And I don't think anything could improve it. It just needs to be knocked down. Number six, which buildings stand out in your city's skyline? In Dublin, there is a building. There's a building, and it looks like it is on its side. So this is the building, but it is tilted this way. So it looks quite cool. It looks like a normal building which has fallen over, sort of like the Tower of Pisa. I don't know what it's called. I think it's a bank that owns the building, but it's very cool. Very modern for Dublin. Doesn't have many modern buildings, but that one is quite cool. And what changes could be made to improve your city? Well, Dublin is a very low-rise city. Low-rise meaning all of the buildings in the city centre are quite small or short. So I think the maximum amount of stories is around 6 or 8 stories tall. So the buildings are quite small. and they should build more high-rise buildings with apartments and places for people to live, because there is a housing shortage in Dublin city centre at least. So that's all about Dublin. But what about your city? Tell me about the architecture in your city. So just for a quick review of our passives. Where is the slide? Okay. So just a quick review of our passives. So how are future and passives formed? Do you remember? So we first have our subject, then modal verb, to be, and past participle. So for example, the rail line should be completed by 2037. The rail line should be completed by 2037. Can you find the modal verb? Can you find the modal verb in this paragraph? Our modal passive in this paragraph. So we had it before. Can you remember which verb it is? Okay. So here's our modal verb here. Can be covered. Can be covered. Which means a distance of 286 kilometers can be covered in only 40 minutes. So there's our modal passive. Okay, lovely, 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 lovely. How are passives formed? Do you remember the structure for passives? So it's quite simple, I think. So for passives, we have subject, then to be, and past participle. Subject to be and past participle. So, for example, the Italian population are being made to work from home during quarantine. Or the walkie-talkie was awarded the Carbuncle Cup. The walkie-talkie was awarded the Carbuncle Cup. Okay. That's it for today, guys. So remember, we had our passives and presenting a structure in this lesson. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them. If you can help someone else, go ahead. And in the chat, what is your favorite type of building? What is the architecture like in your city? We had some nice words here, some great architecture vocabulary, okay? Work in progress, to demolish, skyline, masterpiece, eyesore, and to renovate. So what is an eyesore in your city? And what is a masterpiece? What's a masterpiece in your city? What's an eyesore? Okay, so thank you guys for today. I'm going to leave it there and have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.